Hi, Ketchup Crew.
Hi, Ketchup Crew.
Hi, Ketchup Crew.
Hello.
Also, Bina, thank you for taking over a lot of the effort for recording things. I really, really appreciate that. Like, I know I don't have the energy to record and upload things, so when Bina's away, folks, if you want your stuff recorded, that's on you. And when Bina's here, it's up to Bina if Bina wants to help and do that day. So.
I don't mind doing it while I'm here, but I am not here tomorrow or Thursday, I don't think. So maybe someone else can do it then.
If I knew how to do it, I definitely don't mind the uploading and the hing me and the hing me. Maybe this week in particular.
Cool.
You can record it locally to your computer and then just upload it to a YouTube account, and Bina has a playlist going so that they're all in one spot regardless of what account they're on.
And so you don't need to have the admin capabilities or anything?
I will be here, so
yeah,
I can assign you like enough capabilities that you can record.
Cool. It would be nice to have them anyway, so that I can just, record your faces. Excellent.
Andy, how was Blues?
It was pretty good. My brain wasn't entirely in it, but it was pretty nice overall.
Were you at Leandara's class?
Yeah.
Nice.
I've done almost all. I think I missed. This is the second kind of block of theirs that I've missed since they started doing it, and they have been fun, but I haven't been very good at engage. Like the last block, I wasn't very good at just being in the moment with it. So I thought I'd give myself a bit of time off from it and see if that helped. Hi, Ashura.
That's fair. Hi, Ashura.
Hi.
It's a very loud message. How's it going?
All right.
Good. I had an extremely productive day of like not really getting results, but doing a bunch of admin work that I need to wait for things from other people to register things to get results. But exciting news. I applied to register my business today.
Oh yay, that's so exciting.
That is.
And now I just need like the actual permit that says I can run it out of my place even though everything's happening online. And the actual results of that. But all of the applications for the most part are filled out other than things I need from other people.
That's amazing. Well done.
Yay.
Well, can I do a happy? I had such nice feedback from someone who is part of a group, like a committee at work that I have been sort of adminning and sort of leading, but not really, mostly just creating a space for people to create this thing. And he said it was the most inclusive partnership working group like he's ever been a part of at the institution. So I am super thrilled with that because that is what I was aiming for, and I have been successful in it.
That is glorious feedback.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like not surprising, but also delightful.
Oh. So that is good and takes away from some of the other like political nonsense that's been going on around the thing that seems to be now resolving. But yeah. And it was like public and in front of people who needed convincing that it was partnershipy and proper. So that was good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Andy, can you tell me about Rotherweird? Because I don't actually know anything about it. It's a book.
This is what it looks like. Shall I read the blurb? That probably tells everything that you need to know.
Yay.
And the Times have deemed it an imaginative tour de force. Because, the Times are like that.
Yeah.
And the blurb goes as follows. 1558. 12 children, gifted far beyond their years, are banished by their Tudor queen to the town of Rotherweird. Some say they are the golden generation. Some say the devil's spawn. But everyone knows they are something to be revered and feared. 4.5 centuries on, cast adrift from the rest of England by Elizabeth I and still bound by its ancient laws, Rotherweird's independence is subject to one disturbing condition. Nobody, but nobody, studies the town or its history. Then, an outsider arrives, a man of unparalleled wealth and power, enough to buy the whole of Rotherweird, deeply buried secrets and all. There is so much more to the book than this in the blurb. There's got magic and science and magical science and sciencey magic and parallel worlds and time fuckery.
Those are all things I like.
Yeah. It makes me think
So-
it's like X-Men, except for, historical. In terms of like some people have powers.
In a weird Dr. Moreau kind of way.
Mhm.
Sounds like a good classic story time book. Wait, speaking of, who's going to be Katie today? Lois, you want to be Katie today?
Always want to be Katie if there's an option, but I feel like tomorrow somebody else can be Katie. Okay. And just so folks know, it's
Okay.
still your plan, Andy. Andy was pretty much just gonna read as much as they get through for the first days of this. And then afterwards they said if I wanted to, they would keep reading to me more. So I don't know how they wanted to do that. So let them know if you're liking it and want.
Or if you want more of this book, apparently it takes about 15 hours on Audible. So it's a bit of a commitment, but if you do like it, let me know and we'll figure something out.
Ah.
Yeah, I might just like leave you on for as long as you're reading and then listen in between phone calls.
Oh yeah, I didn't necessarily mean that
I'll-
for tonight. I just meant for like the 3 days in general, but yes.
Ah,
Anyways, hi Sarah. Hey, Andy.
Oh, what is it?
Story
Is
time.
it? All right, then I'd better start, right? Are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. Old History. February 1558. St. James Palace, London. One for sorrow. Mary Tudor, a magpie queen. Dress black, face chill white, pearls hanging in her hair like teardrops. Stands in the pose of a woman with child, her right palm flat across her swollen belly. She knows that what she carries is dead, if ever a baby at all. This cannot be true. On the polished table lies a single parchment, a summary by her private secretary of 10 reports from different corners of the realm. A courtier lurks in the darkness, faceless, a smudge of lace and velvet. The palace has the atmosphere of a morgue. I have seen the reports myself, Your Majesty. You think them cause for celebration? English boys, English girls, we are blessed with a golden generation. All born within days of each other. You do not think that a matter for concern? Some say it is a matter for wonder, Your Majesty. They are the devil's spawn. Unnatural creatures, she thinks, sent to mock her barren state and sap her faith. Their gifts in science, philosophy, alchemy, and mathematics grotesquely developed for minds so young. Prodigies, such an ugly word. She glances down the unfamiliar names. 7 boys, 3 girls. Place them where they can do no harm, she adds. Your Majesty. Find us an unforgiving island and maroon them there. They may not be taught or cosseted. Your Majesty. The courtier withdraws. He knows the queen is dying. He knows from the ladies of the privy chamber that the pregnancy is false. He must find a sanctuary where these children can learn and mature beyond the jealous royal gaze. He will talk to Sir Robert Oxenbridge, a man of the world and constable of the Tower of London, where the gifted children are presently held. He scuttles down the dim corridors like a rat after cheese. Sir Robert watches the children playing on the grass near their billet in the Lanthorn Tower, and then surveys the strange miscellany of objects gathered from their rooms. Abaci, sketches of fantastical machines, diagrams of celestial movement, books beyond the understanding of most of his adult prisoners, let alone these 12-year-olds, and 2 wooden discs joined by an axle wound around with string. The yeoman warder picks up this last object. Designed by one of the girls. It's a merry conceit, but requires much practice. He raises his wrist and lowers it in a languid movement, and the conjoined discs miraculously climb and sink higher each time until they touch his fingers. Sir Robert tries, but under his inexpert guidance, the wooden wheels jiggle at the end of the string and stubbornly decline to rise. He is nonetheless captivated. But there is this, adds the yeoman warder, holding out a board on which are pinned the bodies of 2 bats, slit open to reveal their vital organs. Threads and tiny labels crisscross the corpses. Not pretty, but then the path of medical advancement rarely is, replies Sir Robert, without complete conviction. It is different, Master Malise. Remember, 1 serpent in the garden was enough. The yeoman warder points to the lawn below, and Sir Robert sees the difference. The boy stands aloof, not from shyness, but a natural arrogance. He recalls the Queen's opinion that they are the devil's spawn, but the playful inventiveness of the discs on a string decides him, and the thought that when the old queen passes, the new dispensation will not favor banishing talent on superstitious grounds. Sir Robert turns his mind to an old friend, Sir Henry Grassel, a kindly widower. He owns a manor house in one of England's more secluded valleys, and has the wealth, learning, time, and inclination to provide the needed refuge, and no less important, the education. As befits a veteran soldier, he plots a strategy. Even a sick queen has many eyes and ears. April 1558. A wooded country lane. It is early morning on an obscure tributary of the main highway. A covered wagon drawn by a single horse of no distinction appears and stops. A ladder is lowered. Mud-stained urchins emerge, 7 boys, 3 girls, and huddle on the roadway for warmth as broken sunlight knives through the canopy. Each child clasps a silver penny bearing the faces of the Queen and her foreign king, and a lordly motto. PSMDG, Rosa sin espina. Philip and Mary, by the grace of God, a rose without a thorn. A second wagon appears, very different to the first. The slats on the side are polished to a shine, the wheels fortified with iron rims. The harnesses of finest leather tether 4 horses, not 1. The wagon halts on the opposite side of the clearing, and once again, steps are lowered to deliver 10 children. But these are mirror opposites, with clean complexions and clothes cut to fit. Like two teams from different worlds, haphazardly drawn together in the same game, they eye each other across the glade. Sir Robert points at one cart and then at the other, urging each group to cross. The children understand the instruction and its immediate purpose, although none can fathom the deeper reason for the switch. This is not a mission for strangers. The carter fought with Sir Robert Oxenbridge in France and trusts his former captain in all things, but he has never heard children speak this way, exchanging complex chains of numbers and shapes with foreign names, even discussing the arrangement of the heavens. He crosses himself, uncertain whether his new charges are cursed or blessed. Sir Robert, riding alongside, notes the gesture and its ambiguity. He still judges the children virtuous, save for the boy with the surgical interests, Master Malise. Such joyless eyes. They descend from the valley rim, and Oxenbridge points far below. A single plume hangs in the air. Rich men smoke, he says, knowing the difference from a campfire. From the tallest chimney at Rotherweird Manor, our destination. He smiles at the carter. Had there ever been a gentler act of treason? January. 1. First interview. The woman. The usual terms? Her irregular employer rarely deigned to answer questions directly. His slender fingers drummed the tabletop. Longer and more remote than usual. Time is no problem, replied the actress. They don't write from women my age anymore. He still repelled her, that unnatural white bloom to the skin, the merciless eyes. But there were compensations, and not only the money. She had stayed on a yacht, better described as a floating mansion in the South China Sea, a chalet in the Dolomites, and a palazzo in Florence, all his properties, and she had heard talk of others. She picked up his second qualification. You said remote. Very, but in England. She would have registered disappointment, but for the intensity of his reply and the surprising notion that England could boast anywhere truly remote. You're discreet. You impress the locals. That is all. The actress smiled. Impressing came naturally to her. The same role? Same costumes? Of course. Here the interview would normally end, but she could not resist the burning question. Where in England? Rotherweird. She failed to suppress a look of surprise. But they let nobody in. They're apart. They're different. I appeared to be an exception. Your money is the exception. True. Period glaziers, wood restorers, and plasterers come expensive. Prepare to be lady of an Elizabethan manor house. He stood up before continuing. No more questions, the gesture said. One detail. Can you play maternal? Play maternal? He had such an unsettling way of putting things. She nodded, knowing her beauty did not touch him. The dynamic between them had always been wholly transactional. His cold left hand clasped hers, the wrist bird-like, the grip like iron. Done then, he said, handing over a check by way of advance. A colossal sum for playing in public a wife he had never had. 2. Second interview. The boy. The boy stood outside Vauxhall Station, facing the bridge across an array of traffic lanes, pedestrian lights, and bus stops. It was bitterly cold and still dark at 6:20 in the morning. He would be on time. He fingered the switchblade in his pocket. If the meat turned it out to be some kind of pervert, he would pay. Ignoring the underpass, he vaulted the railings instead. A young suit stumbled towards the station, looking the worse for wear. Noting the bulge in his jacket pocket, he toyed with taking him, but decided against. He was off his patch and alone. The hand-drawn map directed him to the riverside flats west of the bridge with the instruction, "Press P" at the point of arrival. He peered up. Posh. Real posh. The boy feared that P meant parking, having no intention of getting into a stranger's car. But this P sat on top of the row of silver buttons. Anxiety turned to excitement. He smelled opportunity. Someone rich was looking his way. The world might label him a victim of his background, but he was not a victim of anyone or anything. He was himself, a force going places. But the tag did have its uses. Here was another fool determined to cure him. He pressed the button, and a smooth voice spoke from the grill. "Go to the lift. Press P again." The door clicked open. Where the boy came from, lifts were rare and never worked when you found them. They were places for meets and dealing and graffiti. This lift had a carpet that swallowed your shoes and cut glass mirrors. The ascent was silent, its movement undetectable as the numbers beside the door flared and faded. The boy walked into a lobby and gawped at the stunning view, sallow light staining the river as the city began to stir. There were more cars now, and the occasional bicycle. Above the table in front of him hung a picture of the same river in evening light, with a small brass plate. Monet, 1901. Beneath it, a bronze frog stared straight ahead. The boy was right to be apprehensive. He had been watched. The tall man bent over the telescope had fair, almost albino skin, close-cropped silver hair, and a high forehead. The lines in his face were fine, as if age had been kept at bay by some rare field treatment. His hands were long, almost skeletal, the fingernails manicured. His Indian-style jacket, dark trousers, and open-necked silk shirt mirrored the easy elegance of his penthouse flat. The boy did not know it, but he had chosen the art and furniture himself. He frowned on wealthy men who used advisors for taste. He polished the telescope lens, replaced the cap, and turned to the internal cameras. The boy was crude, but build and face held promise. He pressed the internal intercom. "Bring him in," and removed the knife. The boy was disarmed by a young man with a minimum of fuss. He knew when not to mix it up. He was ushered into an office with computers standing in ranks on a glass table on one side of the room. In company with the modern were artifacts and pictures that meant nothing to him, except that they screamed money. His host sprang from an armchair, and the boy revised his expectations. This was no do-gooder. The lips had a heartless curl to them. Unsettled, he sought to assert himself. "What am I here for?" He was used to staring people out. Barristers, magistrates, child psychiatrists, social workers, policemen, rivals on his patch. But he evaded those remorseless eyes. Worse, the man did not speak. The boy was used to dealing with people who came to the point. 20 quid, 2 kilos, guilty or not guilty, who to cut. business talk. When it did emerge, the voice was as firm as the handshake. A drink, perhaps. I'm not here for a drink. Coffee for me, said the old man. Medium sweet, and macaroons for our friend, with nothing to drink. The assistant left the room. I appreciate your coming, continued the man. My coming for what? Do sit down. The boy did so, noticing that each chair arm ended in a predatory animal's head. The man searched his face before offering a hint of a smile, apparently satisfied. What are you here for? A fair question. Call it a role more than a task. The boy hated smart talk. I can't read today. His nostrils twitched at the mild, oily fragrance to the old man's hair. You play a part, understand? I don't know what you're on about. The man held up a list of the boy's convictions. Court, date, offense, and sentence. Impersonation, forgery, obtaining money by deception. The list covered several pages, an unedifying mix of dishonesty and violence. The boy played the victim card. Things have been hard. I had no chance, did I? You had plenty of chances. You just got caught. Now, the boy knew he was here to be used, not cured. What do you want then? I have lost something rare and valuable. You need only know it was taken from me long ago. Then you gotta pay. I haven't got to do anything. The assistant entered with a tray, and the fragrance of fresh baked macaroons permeated the room. The boy grabbed one. His host followed, picking it up his with a slow, easy elegance. If I got no money, interrupted the boy, his mouth half full. The old man sipped his coffee quite unhurried. You reject my terms before you've heard them. The boy bit his lip. How much then? He asked. Enough for a son of mine. Son of mine? An expletive died in the boy's throat. Perhaps, after all. How much is that? Think thousands. A posh phrase came to him. Son and heir. You got other kids? My wife and I are regrettably not blessed. So he wanted a son, but why choose him? What about my probation officer? The adoption papers are ready. You have only to sign. All this to find what? The old man ignored the question. You will be transformed. New name, new clothes, new voice. From his host saying nothing of substance, the conversation was now moving alarmingly fast. What if I refuse? Make that choice and you'll find out. We'd be staying here? For a month or two, while we polish you up, then to a country town. You've never been to the country. Experience is a form of power, Rodney. Rodney? Rodney suits him, don't you think? The old man said to the assistant, adding, with work. Yes, indeed, Sir Vernal, the assistant agreed. Sir Vernal. The boy had never met a sir before, nor indeed a Vernal. Why are you doing this? Asked the boy. I'm a philanthropist, explained Sir Vernal. I give. Not without taking, thought the boy. And when I make generous offers, I like an answer. The offer was a no-brainer, but the boy's desire to win ran deep. You might be on, if you tell me what I'm looking for. The lines on Sir Vernal's face fleetingly looked like scars. It's something you'll always have, even when it's gone. Mine was stolen. Sir Vernal rose to his feet. Naturally, there are conditions. Violence is usually an admission of failure. As they say on the medicine bottle, use only as instructed. And remember, I hire you to listen in school, in the street, wherever. School. Children know more than adults think, but they lack discretion. Sir Vernal smiled. Discretion was too rich a word for the boy in his present state, meaning when to keep their mouths shut. You must become adept at worming your way in. A beautiful woman glided into the room, tall, middle-aged, with marble white skin and dark hair held back by a golden slide. Her eyes had a striking tint of violet, and she had a way of standing as if she had practiced the pose for maximum elegance. She spoke quietly, but with a penetrating clarity. Welcome home, Rodney. Lady Imogen, explained Sir Vernal. Rodney held out a tentative hand as Sir Vernal allowed himself another smile. The unruly colt was broken. We want an English boy of breeding, style without ostentation. First, we clothe you properly, then we start on that voice. The boy nodded obligingly. His benefactors were clearly mad and there for the taking. Play along, he said to himself. Just play along. Tiny hydration break. Third interview. The teacher. Jonah Oblong's career as history teacher at Moss Lane Comprehensive, his first post, was dramatic, but short. When asked about his predecessor, the head had looked at his shoes and muttered, "Fled to Australia." Oblong soon understood why. The class boasted 7 different first languages, 3 intimidating bullies, and 4 pupils with parents hostile to the idea of their offspring learning anything they did not know themselves. Then there was the problem of Oblong's appearance, which lay not in the face, which was pleasing enough, but in the bandiness of his legs and their disproportionate length. With the gangly build came clumsiness, an attribute that, whilst endearing in other contexts, did not assist in the pursuit of class discipline. Oblong began well. His recreation of the Great Fire of 1666 with a cardboard city in the school car park achieved a hitherto unknown interest in England's remote past. But the mantle soon slipped. His division of the class into Roundheads and Cavaliers led to 2 broken windows, and a King Canute demonstration caused a flood. Conventional methods fared no better. After 3 minutes beside the blackboard, Conway, head of the Wyvernshanks gang and no respecter of authority other than his own, interrupted. "Can't we do the World Cup?" "It's not history." "Why not?" "It hasn't happened yet." "What about the last one?" "Boring," whined 2 girls at the front. "It's not on the syllabus." "You don't know," crowed Conway. "Oblong don't know who won." "Brazil?" guessed Oblong. Guffaws all around. Conway's water bomb hit Oblong on the shoulder, and something snapped in that gentle psyche. Oblong took the plastic water jug from his desk and poured the contents over Conway's head just as the school inspector walked in. Sensing his fate, the class behaved faultlessly for the rest of the lesson and said, "Sorry," in so many words, at the end. Even Conway. At the employment exchange, he was labeled overqualified or underqualified for every vacancy except teaching, where the lack of a single reference was proving fatal. The woman behind the counter handed him a dog-eared copy of the Times Educational Supplement, adding with a wan smile, "You never know." He invested £2 from his diminishing reserves in a small cappuccino and went to the local park. The TES revealed a demand for scientists and an even greater demand for references. He persevered to the last page of the classifieds, where a square edged in black like a funeral notice advertised the following: Rotherweird School, history teacher wanted, modern only. CV, photograph, no references. Like everyone else, Oblong had heard of the Rotherweird Valley and its town of the same name, which by some quirk of history were self-governing. No MP and no bishop, only a mayor. He knew that too, that Rotherweird had a legendary hostility to admitting the outside world. No guidebook recommended a visit. The county history was silent about the place. So, a hoax, more likely than not, Oblong concluded. Nonetheless, he sent in his application that morning, declaring a desire to share with my charges all things modern and nothing fusty and old. To his astonishment, a reply came back by return. Dear Mr. Oblong, we are impressed by your credentials and priorities. Present yourself for interview in the new year, 4 p.m., 2nd January, preterm, quiet. Train to Hoy, thereafter a test of your initiative. Yours most sincerely, Angela Trimble, school porter. He checked the trains online and found Hoy well served. The station was unexpectedly quaint, with a lovingly preserved clapperboard signal box. Oblong hailed a taxi. Rotherweird don't do cars, responded the taxi driver with a toothless smile. I've an interview at 4. In Rotherweird. Who are you, the Archangel Gabriel? I'm a teacher. Of what? History. The taxi driver looked amused. Take a bus to the 12-mile post and then the car bank. Why can't I take a taxi? The car bank meets the bus. It don't meet any taxi. Sorry, mate. Rotherweird isn't like other places. Bus stop over there. The bus stop sign had a separate plate beneath the more conventional destination. Rotherweird bus for Carabank, according to need. The bus, an old Volkswagen camper van, arrived minutes later. You coming or what? The driver shouted rudely out of the window. Oblong clambered in. The van hastened through rolling hills and farmland until, spluttering after an extended climb, it reached a huge spreading oak. Oblong looked round. He could see nothing of note. The driver jabbed a finger in the tree's direction. That's the 12-mile post. That's the Rotherweird Valley, and you owe me 6 quid. Oblong paid up. The camper van disappeared in a belch of smoke back the way it had come. At all points of the compass, hills basked in midwinter sunshine, yet the valley below lay hidden in fog. He was standing on the rim of a giant cauldron in which, somewhere, lurked Rotherweird, and an interview. He found it curious that a place so determined to resist modern transport should insist on a modern historian. He heard a whirring noise, followed by a disembodied voice, a deep, cavernous bass, and snatches of the song it was singing. Not all those who wear velvet are good, my child. Beware those who like silver, not wood, my child. Out of the mist lurched an extraordinary vehicle, part bicycle, part carabanc, propelled by pedals, pistons, and interconnecting drums. The double bench in the back had a fold-in canvas hood for protection. The driver wore goggles, which concealed his face, but not a shock of flame-red hair. On the side of the carabanc, written in florid green and gold, stretched the words, "The Polk Land and Water Company." And underneath, in smaller letters, "Proprietors B. Polk Land and B. Polk Water." Smoothing greasy fingers down the front of a grease-stained shirt, the driver introduced himself as Boris Polk. 7 minutes late. My apologies. Damp plugs and visibility nil. It's only that it's gone 3 and times equal distance over speed. I'm not to be confused with Bert. We're identical, but he's first by 5 minutes. I invent and he administers. He has children. I do not. I chose land and he chose water, which is interesting because I've an interview. My only interview. Interview, exclaimed Boris, raising his goggles to examine his passenger more closely. I haven't had one of those since the summer of the wet one. Now, when was that? It's at 4. Oblong pointed his watch for emphasis. 4, Mr. Polk. That's less than an hour away. Is it now? Time equals distance over speed is another way of saying there isn't going to be no distance. Not with you standing there like a totem pole, because there isn't going to be no speed. Chastened, Mr. Oblong heaved his case into the back and was about to follow it when Boris resumed. My dear fellow, you're a co-driver, not a fare. We don't waste energy at the Polk Land and Water Company. Pedal like the clappers and she goes like the clappers. Right, said Oblong. My patented vacuum system creates thrust without engine noise, please note, so energizing the lateral coils and hadn't we better Avanti. The dominant Oblong gene was a tranquil one, as attested to by an ancestry of minor diplomats, the sort who write out table plans in copperplate writing but make no decisions of moment. However, a rogue chromosome occasionally surfaced, as in one lobe oblong, a pirate hung by the French in the 1760s, and now a deep buried wish for adventure stirred in one lobe's descendant, encouraged by the breakneck speed, the wheeze and whoosh of the vacuum system, and Boris's penchant for taking bends on 2 wheels rather than 4. The fog enhanced the feel of a fairground ride, briefly thinning to reveal the view before closing again. In those snapshots, Oblong glimpsed hedgerows and orchards, even a row of vines, and at one spectacular moment, a vision of a walled town, a forest of towers in all shapes and sizes, encircled by a river. The light was failing fast when the caravan finally lurched to a halt. Fog swirled like smoke from the river below. Old Man Roller, explained Boris. A bridge reared disconcertingly into the dark, at right angles to the town, to judge from the yellow smudges of lit windows. Oblong clambered out. What do I owe you? Nothing, and good luck, and be yourself. He added a cheery wave as Oblong set off up the slope of the bridge, cobbles turning the arches of his feet. Mythical stone birds and animals stared down from the parapet. At its summit, the bridge curved sharp left and descended to a forbidding gatehouse, its portcullis lowered. Rotherweird town had been built to keep its enemies out, or its inhabitants in. He shouted and waved his arms until, with much clanking, the portcullis withdrew into the battlements. Through the open arch, a broad street ran north, signed the Golden Mean. A statuesque blonde sat on a wooden bench by the gatehouse wall, improbably reading by a gaslight on an elegant hook above her head. She stood up, mid-30s, Oblong thought, and not to be trifled with. I suppose you're Jonah Oblong. The voice was deep, the tone no nonsense. You must be Angela, the school porter, guessed Oblong. Miss Trimble to you, she added. Horrible evening, as if she were responsible. Oblong heard a violin, faint but distinct, practicing a daunting run of arpeggios with aplomb. Strong on music, he said, to win her round. Strong on everything. This is rather weird, you know. Oblong glanced at his watch. The gesture did not impress. There's modern history for you, always in a rush. Until you're staff, you don't go in, and you're not staff until you're hired. She opened the oak door behind her. You'd do well to remember we're most particular about history. She escorted Oblong into the gatehouse and down a stone passage to a second oak door, reinforced with crossbeams and studded with rusty nails. She lifted the knocker, a grotesque face, and let it fall. Do come in, said a reassuringly friendly voice. A large table had been pushed against the near wall. A sentry duty rota hung above it. 2 ornate oak chairs faced him, probably imported for the occasion, judging by the dinginess of the rest of the decor. Both were occupied, one by a short, rotund man with small eyes and lank dark hair, and the other by a tall, angular man with a beaky face, a bald crown, and bushy white eyebrows. The small man's clothes were expensive. The tall man's might have been so once, but were now beyond any respectable second-hand stall. Oblong sensed they did not like each other. Facing the chairs was a stool. Oblong obeyed the small man's instructions to sit. He felt like a man in the dock. The tall man extended a hand and introduced the short one. Mr. Sidney Snorkel, our mayor. He likes to participate in appointments. I am Rhombus Smith, headmaster of Rotherweird School. We take the teaching of the young most seriously in this town. We take the teaching of the young most seriously in this town, interjected Snorkel in an oily, sibilant voice. We like our teachers focused. Chemists do not teach French, sports masters do not dabble in geography, and modern historians keep to modern history, chipped in Oblong, remembering the advertisement. In class and in life, said Snorkel before embarking on a series of staccato questions. Dependents? None. Hobbies? I write poetry. Not historical poetry? Oblong shook his head. Published? Not yet. Snorkel nodded. Oblong's literary failure to date was apparently a good thing. It consumes all your spare time? Again, Oblong nodded. You realize you teach modern history and no other history whatsoever? Keep to the subject, I understand. Any question for us? asked Smith politely. Questions? Echoed Snorkel, but impatiently, as though his mind were made up despite the absence of any inquiry about Oblong's gifts as a historian or a teacher, being, of course, two very different things. Oblong asked about lodgings. Rooms to himself, rent-free with a cleaner thrown in. He asked about food. Breakfast and lunch, also free. He asked about pay. Generous, albeit in Rotherweird currency. He asked about dates. Snorkel answered his question as he had all the others. Term starts in 10 days. Arrive 4 days early to settle in. You'll be form master to form 4 and modern historian to all. Snorkel stood up. He'll do, he said, adding in Mr. Oblong's general direction. Good evening. I have important guests for dinner. Miss Trimble entered, helped the mayor into an immaculate camel hair overcoat, and they both departed. Rhombus Smith closed the door. You can say no, but I'd rather you didn't. Mr. Snorkel is so very hard to please. I've not been interviewed by a mayor before. The price we pay for avoiding those idiots in Westminster. He interviews everyone? Oh no, the modern historian is a political appointment. Sorry?
Andrada, I've totally lost your audio. Has everyone else lost audio? Everyone else sat
I've
up at
also
the
lost-
same
yeah.
time.
Yeah, right after the political appointment.
No.
A minute, maybe your signal was dropping out.
It was.
It's looking a bit better again.
Maybe?
Did it go?
Yes. Yeah. Tell us all
Only a
about
little
it
bit?
being a political appointment.
Oh no, the modern historian is a political appointment. Sorry? Curiosity about the past is your game, but we're forbidden to study old history by law. Why? Ha, that's a good one. I'd have to study old history to find out, wouldn't I? So just remember to keep it modern. 1800 and after is the rule, and never Rotherweird history, which incidentally you shouldn't know anyway. Now, my boy, is it a yes? Or do you need another 5 minutes to think about it? Oblong had no hint of a prospect anywhere else, and he firmly believed in the old adage that a good headmaster never runs a bad school. He accepted. Splendido, exclaimed Rhombus Smith, shaking his hand warmly. My motto is, scientists teach while we in the arts civilize. Isn't that right? Oblong nodded weakly as the headmaster hunted through various pieces of furniture before retrieving 2 pewter tankards and a large bottle labeled Old Ferdy's Feisty Peculiar. Ghastly job manning the gatehouse. This keeps them sane. The beer was indeed memorable. Earthy, the taste layered. Rhombus Smith raised his tankard by way of a toast. To your happy future at Rotherweird School. My happy future, parroted Oblong without conviction. The headmaster opened a window and peered out. Through his fertile mind, courtesy of an eccentric but photographic memory, flashed several obscure literary passages descriptive of fog. Who's your favorite weather author? He asked, closing the window. Shakespeare. Myself, I go for Conrad. Men of the sea get the weather. Favorite weather line? Oblong floundered. How about Mark Twain? Climate is what you expect, weather is what you get. So it went on, literary small talk, during which Oblong warmed to Rhomba Smith's passion for the 19th century English novel. Between quotes, the headmaster provided other details. Oblong was joining a day school, which took children only from the town and surrounding countryside. Probably more talent than you're used to. You'll be kept on your toes, he added. Oblong found Boris and the carabanc where he had left them. You got it then? How did you know? The hesitant spring in your step. Going uphill, Boris pedaled less furiously and the pistons moved more languidly, leading to a less fraught journey, until the near accident happened. As the carabanc eased round a hairpin bend near the 12-mile post, a large black saloon car loomed into view, headlights on full. Boris swerved and pulled on the brake. The carabanc slewed sideways, ending up across the middle of the road. The black car screeched to a halt. What the hell's that? Exclaimed Boris. A roller, stammered Oblong. I don't care if it's Elijah's flaming chariot. You don't drive down the Rotherweird road like that. Boris marched towards the car, which disgorged a tall, elderly figure who moved towards Boris with surprising grace. You? What do you think your horn's for? The man spoke without emotion. His clothes exuded the same aura of wealth as the car. Get off the road, or I'll drive you off. Drive me off! The man returned to his car, which started to roll forward. Boris had barely had time to realize the threat was real, flick a gear, and reverse into a meadow before the Rolls-Royce accelerated away. In place of the more usual flying silver lady, Oblong glimpsed a gilded weasel atop the radiator. Never known it. Never. Normality returned. The bus to Hoy was waiting, with the same charmless driver. Mr. Oblong waved farewell to Boris Polk. Further exploration of Rotherweird would have to wait. Rodney Slickstone slouched on the back seat between his adopted parents. The countryside had no appeal, still less the thought of dinner with a mayor. But the car changed everything. The touch and the smell of leather, the dappled surfaces, the running board and the predatory purr of the engine. Driving a ridiculous vehicle off the road confirmed Sir Vernal as a man worth following. The actress's thoughts were different. She could not discern why her employer had such a fanatical interest in Rotherweird. Everyone knew the place was an anachronism, and the inhabitants irrationally hostile to the outside world. She disliked the boy and disapproved of playing Sir Veronal's wife to secure his adoption, the purpose of which was equally obscure. Yet she did like playing live drama, whose future scenes like the town below remained shrouded from view. Boris Polk parked the carabanc in one of the sheds of the Polk Land and Water Company and hurried across the courtyard to his rooms, a troubled man. Outsiders very rarely came to Rotherweird, and when they did, they came nervously and with respect. The driver of the Rolls-Royce, by contrast, had exuded an arrogant sense of entitlement. Only one explanation came to mind. He had just met the manor's new owner. Although he could not fathom this outsider's motivation for such a lavish investment in a place where he knew nobody. The reopening of the manor troubled him. The townsfolk knew nothing of Rotherweird's past, but in the valley's rural community, secrets appeared to pass down the generations. He had particularly in mind the secretive neighbour of his friend, the brewer Bill Ferdy, who was known only as Ferenzen. In the loft, Boris kept his singular, in both senses, carrier pigeon, Panjan. Snorkel's henchmen intercepted all communications between town and country, the inhabitants of the latter being regarded with deep suspicions by the town hall. He wrote a short note addressed to Ferdy. Ferdy, tell Ferenstein I think I've met the manor's new owner. A disturbing experience. Boris. He rolled the message into a tiny canister, which he attached to a harness on Panjan's chest. The bird's scruffy appearance belied a sharp intelligence. A whisper of Ferdy's name sufficed. The note contained no request for advice and no suggestion of what to do, nor did he expect a reply. The countrysiders revered Ferenstein, but he never came to town, and few there even knew of his existence. Nonetheless, Boris went to bed more at ease for having shared his experience. And that is a timely end of a chapter.
Ooh.
That was such a good setting everything up like session, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
that was a cool series of characters and quite interesting.
I already dislike the mayor.
Politics, eh?
Yeah. It's
Yep.
quite interesting as to who's actually going to be a main character, if any. Because, like, the art historian.
Spoilers.
Well, like you could see the art history teacher having to discover everything, maybe, but also other people could come in.
He's the us character, right? He's the audience character who doesn't know anything and is going to ask all of the questions.
Yeah,
Like the doctor's companion, he's that person.
yeah.
And he's gonna find out a lot of things that he wouldn't expect.
That moment when he was like, yeah, my happy future. I was like, ah!
I'm having a premonition.
Yeah.
So I had to look up where this place was because I had to have all the image in my mind. So I don't know if, do you guys from Scotland know where it is?
No.
So obviously I think the place itself is made up, but Hoy railway station is in the top, right near John O'Groats.
All right.
Right up in the top right hand corner.
Well, in Orkney you've got
Which is
you've got something called the Old Man of Hoy, which is just a rocky precipice.
that's what it made me think of the first time.
But there was actually a railway station called Hoy Railway Station on the mainland, apparently. And
But
so,
they said they were going to go and live in England.
I did say that, didn't they?
Yeah. Mm.
So this imaginary place with its own imaginary side of London.
So say that again. I
Yep.
think he went at a weird speed for me.
I went weird. The secluded village is meant to be somewhere.
Oh no, we lost the audio again.
Not allowed to know. Against the rules to know things about Rotherweird.
Not allowed.
Yeah. I think it's reaching towards us.
I think you said it's outside of London,
right?
right?
Yeah, I did.
Marina. That's what I got from my garbled version.
Garble, garble, London, something.
Yeah.
Describes many stories set in England.
Where's the author from?
Yeah.
What's the backstory to the author?
Where is it? It's somewhere at the end. Hold on a second. Andrew Caldecott is a QC specializing in media defamation and libel law, as well as a novelist and occasional playwright. He represented the BBC in the Hutton inquiry into the death of biological warfare expert and UN weapons inspector David Kelly, The Guardian in the Leveson inquiry into the British press following the phone hacking scandal, and supermodel Naomi Campbell in her landmark privacy case, amongst many others.
Generally a good person.
Ah.
He wrote some. He studied history at New College, Oxford. That's all the info that we have that could be.
Someone who
English.
studied history writing about a historian. Shocking.
I
So
know,
write
right?
what you know.
Oh, it's got some pictures. Illustrations by Sasha Laika, who studied figurative art in Moscow and a degree in graphic design and illustration in the UK. And she is now a London-based artist. Creates intricate works that draw on imagery from mythology, folklore, and religious iconography.
Sounds like
So
things
the
to
12
look forward to in the book.
The 12-mile post, that big tree that came up in the story, looks something like this.
Spotlight view. Cool.
There's a road and the big tree and weird skies.
I like the illustration style.
And she also illustrated the accident, which is on the other side, with the Rolls Royce and the Carabank.
Nice. I had to sort of internally guesstimate what a Carabac is because I had no idea. It's sort of like stuff whirring, a bit like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang without the car.
Yeah, it's some sort of strange contraption that you pedal and functions on steam and whatever else, and it just goes super fast. Or not, depending on how much pedaling is involved.
Yeah.
I imagined a sort of steampunk trike.
Yeah. But it also sounds like it's not necessarily gas powered or anything like that, as in you're at least inputting energy in the pedaling. So maybe it's just advanced technology bypass the engine.
It does work with steam, but it doesn't specify what kind of steam.
Yep.
And how you get it.
Well, that
What
sounds like
you
it's
burn to
potentially
get-
philosophical. Are you emotionally running out of steam? Does it run on my emotional steam?
Has anyone read the book before except Andrada?
I think Katie was reading it at some point after I recommended it.
I read it years ago.
So obviously not people who know the answer, but what do we think that the old guy is looking for or has lost or has had stolen? Guesses in this early.
Yeah, sorry. Like,
the
oh, I was just gonna say
the-
it's hard
the
to tell.
hit-
Like, there's not enough emotion, enough scenic detail for me to pick up on yet. But Andy clearly has thoughts.
Andy knows
clearly
that, doesn't
it's the thing that drives the plot forward, no?
it?
Something at the school potentially.
Yeah. Like he's making a lot of effort to fit in using his hired family.
Mm-hmm.
But also not a lot of effort to fit in by just coming
By-
along and being super rude and obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there is also a general disregard towards the country people,
Yeah.
which the driver of the caravan was one of.
Mm.
How come he's allowed his car?
He's rich.
I mean, yeah, okay.
But it doesn't strike me that people aren't allowed cars. It just seems to be not the done thing. I don't think it ever said they weren't allowed them. It's just not rather that it was not the done thing, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for more of this. I want more information.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions at this point.
Yeah, I kind of expected that.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna handle only 3 days of this already.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd assumed it was YA, but is it not YA? I mean, is it just a young adult?
All right.
Where would it sit in the bookshop?
Yeah.
I can't remember where it was in the bookshop. I just looked at it and thought it looked cool and I bought it.
I mean, it's one of the things with books with weird in the title. It's pretty much a guarantee I'm gonna pick it up. This happened 3 times now, so.
Also, it looks like this on one side. And it's got, yeah, quirky, black and red, everything. Yeah.
So angsty looking.
I am glad I picked that up.
I know, right?
Like the lyric, your thing is with the word weird. Frankie's is the word library, like with an adjective.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a. I'll definitely pick up this book.
Well, if it looks wholesome.
I do pick up colourful books more often than not colourful books. If I'm just like randomly choosing with no knowledge. Seka, are you trying to talk to us? Because I think you're muted. Well, you're not muted, but we're not getting any audio.
One thing I like about this book is its structure, because it goes old history and this whatever happened in January, which we started on, and then there's a bit of old history and what happens in February. Old history with March, old history April, old history May, old history June, old history July. So it goes along with.
So is the book
bit of what-
is it over a year? Or those bits with the dates?
So far, this book has 7 months, and I think their school structure is completely different. Yeah. There are 2 more books in the series, and they continue in a similar fashion.
I like books with a satisfying structure.
Yeah.
I think there's still a couple of days next week without anything scheduled, you know, if people are really liking them. Just reading more of it.
You can. You're very welcome.
I was kind of thinking while we were listening that perhaps if there's longer books that are, you know, begun, then we could just sort of work around other things that people schedule in. You know, if people wanted a book to continue on, essentially.
Yeah, and if the readers are up for continuing to read them.
Of
The
course.
other thing we could do is have the start and then book club the end.
Oh, that would be fun.
Because
Like read the book and get together for the end.
yeah,
Yeah,
because like
I suggested
we'll
that
have,
a while.
we'll have
Yeah,
had the
I think it
first
would be a
3
good way of
hours.
doing it.
Cool. So for those of us who want to buy the book or read the book after Thursday, we can get the book. And then in like a month from now, Andy will come back and read us the end. Enough time, right? With other book clubs simultaneously happening, you know. Oh yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen the post and wants to join Shades of Grey, the book that Frankie read the start of at the Storytime finale. A bunch of us wanted to keep going with it, so I got a copy. I know Andy has a copy. I think Ian mentioned being interested in it.
I've ordered a copy. I haven't got it yet. Yeah.
So we're gonna meet in a couple weeks. We're still picking the day. I think it might have been 3 weeks so that people have a week to get the book. Andrada divided up the book into parts. So every couple weeks we're gonna meet up and talk about the book so that it's still kind of like we're reading it together.
How much are we reading for the first session?
First 6 chapters.
6. Yeah.
So that has been organized in the comments thread of a post where you can find details on Facebook or message. I had originally proposed Fridays to some extent because it's the only day that Megan can do, but Jen made a very good point of people are going to get busy on Friday evenings in the summertime. So there's the option of doing a little bit earlier before story time on one day. So that's been put out there if people want to get together to do it beforehand, because I don't want it to take over time that people would just come hang out and listen to people read anyways.
What's happening on Sundays? Are people still doing standalone Sundays?
I cannot do Sundays.
I think standalone Sundays sort of dropped off. I don't know what, like March. And I guess Tuesday through Thursday is sort of standalone-y these days.
I was just wondering whether Sunday was available for the book club, but obviously not every week's not available.
Weekends are tough for folks. As in, we have poetry time on Saturday, and Closest Embrace is now Saturdays, and I can't do Sundays anyways, and I'm organizing it, so I can make choices.
I mean, if you're organizing, you definitely get to not schedule it at a time that is inconvenient for you.
Yeah, though honestly, I've just been wanting to pick that book up, but I've been trying to wait because I know once I start with it, I'll probably have a hard time putting it down. Or I'll need to restart and go back, and I don't want to have to do that. So I'm rereading Good Omens instead to put off the time. God, how good it is.
Nice.
Crowley.
Yeah, I think weekends we're getting a little bit quieter kind of anyway. It's just more likely to have stuff going on. Yeah, I guess, I don't know, as stuff opens up more often, we might like reduce down number of days, but at the moment I think Tuesday through Thursday and Saturday seems like a good, it's still the majority of the days of the week.
We still got a good group of people here most of the time. Like, and even when it is a smaller crowd on Saturdays for poetry time, it always just turns into really lovely chats. So it's never a problem if there's not a lot of people available.
Yeah.
It means to come to Saturdays and then things keep coming up.
They're good if you're ever free to do it. Because, yeah, I really like poetry time.
And it's sci-fi this week, is it? Rory's hosting on sci-fi.
Sci-fi poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rory's hosting.
Oh,
And I can't make it this Saturday, which I'm sad about because sci-fi is such a good theme.
I'll read some more Edwin Morgan for you.
I was gonna say Edwin Morgan. It's just like everyone's slowly amalgamating poetry collections.
Yep.
Right, guys, I'm gonna leave. Good night to you all.
Oh wait, no, stay
Oh,
long
we
enough
should
to say goodbye to the catch-up
probably
crew.
Oh,
that.
catch up crew.
Who's doing the catch-up crew message?
Yeah.
Andrade, you have to do a catch-up crew message.
Okay.
Someone has to say catch up crew.
Now,
Catch-up crew.
now, catch-up crew.
Catch-up crew.
Catch-up.
Catch-up crew.
Beware of strange old men that try to pay you for things.
Good advice.
Mm.
Hi,
Unless
catch-up
you work retail, then it's normal. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ketchup.
Bye.